Hello, welcome to KiwaniTalk. We're a public information show put together by people from the Dearborn Kiwanis Club. Help from the people, students and staff at Dearborn High School. My name is Gary Gardner, your host for this, which is the longest running cable access television program in the entire world. And today the world is getting ready for a really big event, which is the election coming up on November 5th. And to help us talk about the election process in Dearborn and the election process in Michigan in general, hopefully you got some knowledge about that. We have with us the city clerk from the city of Dearborn, Mr. George Darany. George, welcome.
Thank you.
And the deputy clerk was Megan Lizbinski.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's great to have you. And again, the election is coming up, and it's a really important thing. And the clerk's office, I think, is most often identified as the election central, but there's a lot more that goes on in a clerk's office besides a clerk, but there's a lot more that went on in George's life before he became the clerk. How did you get to be where you are today, George?
Well, as some of you might know, I did start off on the city council back in 2007. After working for 20 years running the trolleys in Dearborn. If you remember the Classic Trolley Company, or formerly the Dearborn Trolley Company, did that for 20 years, and was always publicly minded and wanted to volunteer and do other things. So I was asked to run for city council, and I ran, and I didn't win, but I kept at it. And the second time I ran, and I didn't win. So I said, okay, I'm gonna give it one more try. So I ran the third time, and guess what? I didn't win.
Okay.
So,
but it got into your blood, this running.
The running thing got into me, yeah. So unfortunately, our mayor had passed away, and there was a little bit of a shakeup on the city council, and some people moved. John O'Reilly moved up to be mayor, and that left a vacancy, and I became a member on the council. And then I ran, and I did win. And then after that, I ran for state rep and won 3 consecutive times, 2-year terms for that. And of course, at that time, you were term limited after 6 years. So I always had in the back of my mind running for clerk. Even when I was on the city council, I thought that would be a nice position, nice place for me to land. And so I ran for clerk, and I've won 2 elections, and I'll be up next year for another one.
So Megan, how did you get into the clerk's office, and where did you grow up?
I grew up in Detroit. I've been with the clerk's office since March of 22. I left a career for a local nonprofit. I was a guest services manager.
Okay, so the clerk's office, again, and we have a really nice office, a really nice facility in Dearborn. Talk to people where that is if they want to come over, because we're going to talk about where they're going to have to go later on.
Yes.
To cast their, pick up their different things. Where's that clerk's office?
Well, it's funny. Some people call it City Hall, some people call it Town Hall, but officially it's known as the DAC, which stands for DAC, which stands for the Dearborn Administrative Center. And it's located on Michigan Avenue, 16901 Michigan Avenue, which is right across the street from Ford World headquarters.
That's probably a better landmark than that.
Yes, exactly.
Just go across the street from headquarters and you're there.
Yeah.
So besides elections, what are the other functions, or the sundry functions that the clerk's office has?
We issue all of our birth and death certificates, all of our licensing, notary services, food truck licenses, dog licenses.
Yeah, so how many different licenses could there possibly be for a city like Dearborn?
There's a plethora of licenses. We've got our food truck licenses, all of our food establishment licenses, dog licenses and dog park, but then also our skilled trade licenses as well. Builders, electricians.
Building permits type of
We
thing?
don't do permits.
Okay, you don't do them. Who does the permits then?
The permit office.
Of course, it's the permit office, so that's all those sort of things.
Yep.
And when you come into the clerk's office, it is really a great setup. Talk about when someone walks in, what they can expect and what they can do.
So there are 2 tablets available as soon as you walk in, and when you walk in, you can type in your name, type in the department that you're interested in seeing, and if you type up clerk, all the different things that we do in the clerk's office will pop up.
So there's a line, but it's a virtual line in some respects, and so people can't jump the line.
Right.
Right.
And you can also move it along pretty efficiently too.
Yeah, it's a pretty good system. There's usually a gentleman there that will help people too if they have problems with the tablet or don't know exactly which department that they're looking for. There's always somebody there to help them.
And you mentioned notary services, Megan. What kind of notary services do you have?
So we'll notarize documents. George and I are both notaries. So some of the residents will need a notary service for car loans or bank documents. So we'll provide that. There's a fee for that, but it's local, it's nearby, and our fee is pretty reasonable.
I never knew that. So you're in competition with me. All that I don't charge my notary. So
Okay.
The other services at the clerk's office, how much time is spent on those compared to election? People have the idea that election is like, okay, we have one maybe in the spring, maybe one in the summer, and one on that, but other stuff goes on in the clerk's office. How much of your staff is devoted to other than election services?
Well, we have individuals that are kind of like managers of different departments. So we have one person in charge of the licensing, and then we have another person that handles all the birth and death certificates, which is, it's a pretty big operation because we do almost $300,000 a year in birth and death certificates. We're the largest in the county, and when I talk to the people, the clerk's office in Detroit, they swear that we probably do more than they do in Detroit because a lot of children are born in Dearborn. And so we keep those records forever. We have a vault that keeps records of people born in Dearborn, hard copies of those records from 1923. So it goes back quite a ways. So we spend a lot of time on birth and death certificates. That's a big portion of our day. And we have people working the counter that are trained to do a lot of different things. So they can do a birth and death certificate, they can do licensing, they can issue you a ballot. So they're cross-trained to do a lot of different functions.
And we have the Oakwood Hospital, whatever its iteration it's called this week.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big facility too. So
Yeah.
you get a lot of children born there.
A lot.
And a lot of people, you know, who go to hospitals for their last time. So
I think latest count we had was about 350 to 400 a month being born. And so that puts a lot more emphasis. Our birth and death area is growing all the time because more and more people are being born and more people are passing away, and that just makes our lines a lot longer for people that want that information.
but now we've got the election coming up.
Yes.
And right now the election is scheduled for November 5th, 2024, but it's no longer election day, it's election season. How did that come about? What was the idea behind having a longer time for the election, George, if you know?
Well,
As a former legislator. too,
yeah, so it wasn't brought up by the legislature. Actually, it was a voter initiative, a ballot initiative brought up by the voters in Michigan, who thought that, like other states, we should have more opportunities and more chances to vote other than just on election day. Even though we have early voting in the form of absentee voting or mail-in voting, but it was a vote that went to the people, and by I think it was a 60 to 40 margin, the voters voted for yes, let's do early voting, which allows municipalities a minimum of 9 days to do early voting before the general election.
So what's the difference between absentee voting and this early voting thing?
Sure. So early voting is 9 consecutive days, as George mentioned, at one central location. So for the city of Dearborn, it's at the Ford Community and Performing Arts Center.
Which is right in Michigan and Greenfield.
Michigan and Greenfield,
Yeah. Not across
exactly.
from, down the road from World
Down the
Headquarters.
road.
Yeah.
And the voter can tabulate the ballot themselves.
What does that mean?
So they can take their ballot and feed it directly themselves into the tabulator. When
So-
you vote by mail, you mail us your ballot back and we hold it safely and securely, and then we tabulate it on your behalf. We're the ones that feed it into the tabulator.
And so the difference, so if you go to the regular election day polling, you fill out your ballot. If you do absentee voting with the you can fill out your ballot. Instead of putting in the mail and hoping the post office gets it there, you can go on those 9 days, just like at the election place, and feed it into the machine.
Yep.
Exactly.
People, when that first happened, what were people's comments about how that process worked, and what are they saying about it?
Well, I mean, we're hoping for more. It's when the state first rolled it out, they were hoping that we would have about 1,000 people a day that they estimated would be using it. So we beefed up, and we had a lot of people scheduled to work at the Performing Arts Center to get ready for this crowd of 1,000 people a day. Didn't quite turn out that way, so people didn't quite get it. But the ones that did vote used it, thought it was great because there were no lines. And we were set up. We had so many people to help them, and it was easy to do. When we did it the second time, which was in August, we had actually less people that used it in August than used it in February. But I think word is starting to get out, and people are starting to figure out, especially in November, there could be some long lines in November. We're expecting about 30,000 people to come out on election day to vote, and that's going to create some lines. So if you want to save yourself some time, I would suggest you take up the early voting and come to the Performing Arts Center 9 days before and take advantage of that.
Right around October 26th or whatever.
Yep.
26th,
okay.
absolutely.
So when you vote, you in person, you show your ID, and that's when my wife and I voted for the first time, early voting, absent, at the Performing Arts Center this past August.
Okay.
And it was just like being at the polls.
Right.
We have done absentee ballots when we're going out of town. What are the, if any, restrictions on voting absentee? What do you have to do to be able to get an absentee ballot?
No restrictions. The state of Michigan passed a law in 2018, so we have no reason absentee voting.
Okay, so that makes it easier
Very much.
to encourage
Expands
people to vote. And difference is when you go to vote in person, either at the precincts or at the Performing Arts Center, show ID. How do you guys know that the voter is the voter who's turning in the absentee ballot? How does that work?
So there's a signature verification that we do. So everybody has a MasterCard that we keep a hard copy of, but it's also in a database that's called the QVF, which stands for Qualified Voter File. That's that the state has, that we can tie into all the Dearborn residents into that state system. And we verify the signatures when they come in, that the signature that's signed on that ballot matches the signature that we have on file. And if it doesn't, then we will call the individual or send them an email or even write them a letter. There's like 3 different ways that we need to contact that person and let them know, hey, we cannot process this ballot any further until you come in person and sign your signature, show us your ID to make sure that you're this person.
We want to make it clear that the signature is not on the actual ballot because the ballot itself is anonymous.
Right.
Correct.
It's on the envelope.
On the envelope, the mailing envelope.
Yes.
Yeah, so we can have that clear. You don't want.
Yeah.
I'm proud of my ballot, but I'd like it to be secret.
Yeah, of course.
So it's on the outside of the mailing envelope. So
yes.
when people get absentee ballots, if they've never received one before, what do they get? What does it look like when they come in? What do they have to do with it if they want to vote pure absentee?
Yep.
So the first thing that they do have to have on file is an absentee voter application. And though that is going to disappear as part of the passage of Proposal 2. But we need that first, and then they will receive their ballot in a secrecy sleeve, and that they will return it in the very same way.
And so the secrecy sleeve is inside the mailing envelope.
Correct.
And then the mailing envelope gets sent back.
Correct.
With the signature on the outside of it. Okay. And you have, when people send in their ballots, and you mentioned, George, that not everybody's signature matched. What would a reason be for a signature not matching?
Well, there's lots of reasons. I mean, most of the time you can tell that this signature and the signature that's on file is just not even close. And one is a scribbled line and one is like printed out. I mean, that's an obvious one that you know for sure. And most of them are obvious because 99% of the time the signatures do match. And we look at the capital letters to you can make a capital letter pretty much the same and then the scribble that comes after it. But we go through a process that was sanctioned by the state. We had a class and a webinar that we had to go through where they kind of showed us and taught us what to look for, and we are bound by those rules to check the ballots.
But age could be a reason. Someone's signature changes over time, a medical condition. And like George was saying, the training has taught us to look for similarities in different letters.
And I know my signature from when I first got my driver's license way back when Moby Dick was a minnow, is a lot different than my signature today. So that's the reason for that. What we're going to do right now, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back after the break, talk more with George Darany, the city clerk for the city of Dearborn, Megan Lizbinski, who is the deputy clerk. We'll get into more of the nuts and bolts about the 2024 November 5th election. Don't go away.
Is a kid fearless? Nervous? Playful? Yes. 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 Kiwanis is 600,000 kids at heart doing all the little and big things it takes to help children around the world. Because kids need Kiwanis. All of them.
Welcome back to KiwaniTalk. I'm your host, Gary Gardner, on this election eve special, even though it's not election eve. There's such a long election cycle now. Every day is election eve, right, guys?
Right.
And to help us talk about that, we have from the city of Dearborn, the city clerk, Mr. George Darany, and the deputy clerk, Megan Lizbinski. Here we go. So, this election season is rushing upon us. We're taping this, a couple of weeks before the election, but by the time this is out there, right in the middle of it. Right. Talk about what happens on election day, and where do you get all the workers to help you do that?
It's an ongoing process, really, to get election workers now. It's harder and harder, it seems, to find people that want to work that long day. A lot of people work it because it's very rewarding, doing their civic duty and getting paid for it. But it just seems to get tougher and tougher for us, so that means we have to start earlier. So we have a program that Megan brought in, and when she became the election supervisor, what's it called?
It's called Election Worker. Software program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so, the city of Dearborn right now, when you're watching this, more likely than not, you can, if you want to get a gig for a day.
Absolutely.
Talk about it, Megan.
Oh, please visit the website. We have a State of Michigan application for you to fill out, send it back to us electronically, or drop it off at the office. Once we receive it, we will put you into our election worker software and invite you to join. You'll be able to pick your training date, pick your position that you wish to work, can identify which polling location you want to work. We're looking for workers to work on election day at all of our polling locations and our end of the night receiving board as well. So if you're a night owl, that's the shift for you.
So the website, and I'm sure there's a long one, but if you go to the City of Dearborn Clerk's office, there may be a link to it.
Absolutely.
But what's the official website? Let me just get you that.
Dearborn.org.
Dearborn.org.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can navigate to that part.
Dearborn.gov.
And
.gov.
Dearborn.gov.
Dearborn.gov.
Yes.
Okay. So now we have, I want to be an election worker. I go to Dearborn.gov. I sign up. I go through the training. What do I get paid?
You'll get $20 for the compensation for training and $225 for election day. Our receiving board is also $20 for the training, but only $100 for the time you're there, 7 to 11-ish.
Okay, so election workers, that you're there, but what about this early voting thing? And that do you need workers for that too? And how's that working?
So at this time, we do not need additional early voting workers. Our schedule is full. Okay. We do compensate our early voting workers for their 10-hour day. It's $170. We are not doing any training because we are using workers who have been with us now for the 2 previous early voting experiences. So right now the schedule is full, but if that's something you're interested in, put it on your application. Something opens up, we'll put you in.
Okay, but if you as a citizen want to vote, starting October 26th, make your way to the Dearborn Community Performing Arts Center at Michigan and Greenfield. Go in there, and in the room there's your workers who are well trained, help you do it, and cast your ballot actually in person, absentee, I call it in-person absentee ballot.
Gotcha.
So describe, the polls open up in the morning. What time do they open up?
7 a.m.
7 a.m., okay. And what happens at 7 a.m. and what happens throughout the course of the day at these polls?
And at 7 a.m., somebody goes outside and says, "The polls are open." That's the official opening up of the polls, and it's what we're required to do actually by state law to announce to the world that the polls are open. And then we normally have a pretty good crowd of people that come in at 7 o'clock because they want to get it done before they start their business day. But I'm anticipating a long day. I mean, possibly long lines, because we expect a lot of people to vote at this election. It could be our busiest election ever in the history of the city of Dearborn, and we're expecting close to 50,000 people to vote total, and about 30,000 of those will be on election day itself.
So if you are registered to vote, you're all set. But let's say I haven't registered yet, but I want to vote. What can I do?
Well, you can come to the Dearborn Administrative Center or City Hall, and you can register up to 8 p.m. on election day itself. So you can come and register on election day.
Is that at City Hall you have to register?
At our clerk's office.
But you can't go to a precinct and register. You have to go to the clerk's office and register. And
Please don't wait.
Yeah, please don't
Please
wait.
don't wait.
Please don't wait.
Yeah.
When you show up to register to vote, what do you have to provide as identification?
Yes.
Or some sort of residency verification that you're a resident of the city for the last 30 days.
And what about citizenship?
You do not have to prove that. You will check that off on your voter registration application.
Okay, so they're relying on the good faith of the.
Well, they check the box saying that they are a U.S. citizen, and of course, at the bottom of the page it says, if you commit
Under penalty of
election
law.
fraud, then it's a misdemeanor.
It was harder to get my driver's license than it was to vote on it, because I had to show that. Anyway,
Yeah.
To get my ready ID card. So you're registered to vote. You can vote all day for 10 hours a day for 9 days before the election.
Yes.
You can vote absentee anytime
Yes.
up until that time. How good idea is it to mail my absentee ballot in on election day?
Oh, please don't. Please bring it to us. Either to our office, we have a drop box right in front of the office, or we have 4 drop boxes located in local parks: Crowley Park, Levagood Park, Lapeer Park, and Hemlock Park. We'll go through several times on election day to collect ballots from those drop boxes, and you have until 8 o'clock to deposit your ballot, but please don't mail it.
So if I showed up at City Hall at 7:45 and I want to register and I want to vote absentee, if I could possible to do that, but don't.
You could do
You
it,
could
but
do it.
you have to do it before 8 o'clock. We cannot issue an absentee ballot after 8 o'clock. So you would have to be in line and actually have us issue you the ballot before 8 o'clock.
So I noticed that when I go to vote, when I voted in the past thing, they take my driver's license, they scan it, all of a sudden all my information pops up. What's up with that?
Yeah, it's the process that's been used. So it takes the guesswork out of typing it. It makes the lines go faster, and it reduces errors of misspelling somebody's name or putting in a wrong address. We just scan the driver's license, and everything pops up that shows us that you are who you are.
Right. It's the electronic poll book. So you remember the old poll books that you had to look by street index. This is the electronic poll book, and being able to scan, as George said, just eliminates any errors, misspellings, mistypings. It pulls right up that voter's information, so there's no guesswork.
And the ballots this time, there's the presidential election, the U.S. House and Senate, there's all the local things, and there's a proposition I think I saw on my
Yeah,
absentee
Wayne
ballot.
County.
Main County proposition.
On those types of things. So now it's come the magical time when the clock winds its way up till 8 o'clock on election night, and you guys say, great, we're done, right?
No.
Not yet.
Why
We
not?
say the polls are closed.
We do, yes.
The polls are closed.
Okay.
And then we get to work. The election workers have paperwork to do. They're doing the final tabulations. They're printing out tapes that have to be signed by all the people that have worked there that day, the inspectors that worked that day. If anybody's there that wants to see those results, we can show them the results from that precinct after they're completed their work.
When you say the results, what level of results can they see? All of them, or?
The results just for that precinct.
Yeah.
The votes
But-
tabulated at that precinct.
And so you can say which people won the school board election,
Yeah.
or all those things, all the way up to the
Yeah, it's a
Right.
pretty long tape.
It is.
And like you said earlier, because this ballot is so long, it's double-sided and it's pretty full. There's that tape could be 6, 7, 8 feet tall tape that has all the numbers for
All the
that
contests.
particular
Yep.
precinct.
So
Yeah.
my wife told me to ask this question. So
Okay.
you use a magic marker She's worried about bleeding through and getting a miscount on the back ballot. That doesn't happen?
Does not happen. Those ovals are offset.
Okay.
So if you do use a magic marker and it does bleed through, you're not bleeding through onto another oval. They're just offset for that purpose.
Okay, so back on track for after election night. You've got all these tapes and things like that. Where does the information go and how does it get there?
Go ahead.
Sure. So all of our chair people pack up and bring back with them all of the necessary documentation that we need, come back to the DAC, and they go through a process which is called the receiving board. So we check and verify all of the information, all of the certificates, all of the signatures, all of the seal numbers, then everything gets uploaded to our server and then transported down to the Wayne County elections.
Okay, so upload it to the server. What server does it go to?
It's a closed network between our office and the Wayne County elections.
Okay, but then there's also physical.
There's physical cards,
Yeah.
flash drives, media cards that are taken down by our Dearborn police officers down to Wayne County.
Okay, so I've voted and I'm anxiously waiting to see what's going to happen. What time is Dearborn going to be done, or you hope to be done?
Well,
and will you be done?
Yeah, so we like to have at least the initial results in by about 9:30, depending on how quick the folks come back from the polling locations. We'll take those scanned cards and we'll get the results for maybe 5 precincts, and we'll post, okay, with 5 precincts reporting, here are the totals. And then throughout the night, the next batch may be a total of 15 precincts, and then maybe we'll get to the 30th precinct. By the end of the night, we have 48 precincts, and we might tabulate for all 48 precincts, but we're still waiting for absentees to be done.
Yes.
So there probably will be 5 or 6 updates before the final result, and we hope to have that final result around 11:30.
Down to our last little bit. You've had the absentees. Why weren't they counted already?
So they will start being tabulated early, beginning October the 30th. But again, no results are issued until after 8 o'clock. So if you still have an absentee ballot, please try and get it to us as soon as possible. So once the polls close at 8, we just have a very small few to tabulate. That'll help speed up the process.
And one last thing, when a person returns their absentee ballot, do you guys know that it's in, and then do you notify anybody that it's in, and that they stop getting the mails and the phone calls and the door knocks and the text messages?
The state has initiated a new program now, so when we scan it in, you could go to the state site, and the state will tell you it's been scanned in, it's been received by the city of Dearborn.
All that's available.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you very much, George Darany, Megan Lizbinski, for coming out here. Good luck on the election, okay? And more than that, make sure you get out and vote, because the right to vote, critical, we need to do it, and it's the most important election for a long time this year, as they all are, based on our country, our Constitution, and our rights and our duties to vote. Have a good night. I'm Gary Gardner. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you
See
very
you
much.
later. Bye-bye.